Welcome. Uh, Again, this is a live session here on Insight Timer on the stories uh, you tell yourself and which ones are true and which ones aren't, right? Um, Again, I'm Steve Walker, a life coach and meditation teacher. I like to have an active chat, so Victoria's got us off to a nice start. Good morning to you. If you want to let us know where you're tuning in from, and if at any point you have any questions or concerns or pushback or epiphanies, breakthroughs, let us know. Pop it in the chat. I'm sure somebody will find it validating, reassuring, interesting, maybe even paradigm shifting, right? Um, so today's topic about the stories we tell ourselves, I've dealt with some semblance of this before um, uh, in a couple of different ways. Um, our way of looking at ourselves and the world around us can be broken down into a couple of different categories of kind of lenses through which we look at ourselves and the world, the universe. Paradigms, which tend to be about everything outside of us, right? The world, other people, the universe, etc. And we have paradigms, people are good, people are not good, people will always take advantage of you. We're all connected by energy. No, we're not. We're all autonomous, creatures. There's no energy connecting us. Um, uh, um, Reincarnation, past lives. Do you believe in it? Do you not believe in it? These are paradigms. They're lenses through which we look at the world, right? What's possible, what's not. Then there are mindsets, which is what we're going to focus most of our attention on today, which are about ourselves mostly, right? I'm good at this, I'm not good at that. I'm worthy, I'm not worthy. I'm lovable, I'm not lovable. I'm lazy, I'm a hard worker. Um, uh, I always struggle at this, right? Um, those often become um, the foundational things that define what we do and what we don't do, how we respond to crises and opportunities. Um, and it's really important that we recognize that we have these mindsets towards ourselves, that most of them were created when we were kids, not by us. They were created by adults in our lives, sometimes peers, but adults, often our parents, sometimes teachers, grandparents, you name it, um, who labeled us, who defined us, who judged us or our behavior or our results, right? Our actions in a way that had a profound impact on us for better or worse. And that got wired in here so that when we turned 11 or 12, probably when they think maybe that our id, our sense of self, gets created in our brains, that was hardwired in there to some extent, right? And it shaped our actions and reactions the rest of our lives. But the good news is that one of the mindsets that we can adopt is a growth mindset. And because of a growth mindset, we can get better at shifting other mindsets as well, right? That they may have been hardwired, but we can fix the wiring, right? We can reprogram things. And there are, whole schools of therapy around this, including like rewiring traumas, right? EMDR therapy is a very effective way of doing that, where you're basically, helping the brain be better at, retelling the story of a trauma, right? So that it changes the paradigms and the mindsets that resulted from that and hopefully makes you less susceptible to being triggered in the future. Um, so so we want to talk about these mindsets, right? And how we can shift them. So probably, um, you know, the most famous one recently is a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And Carol Dweck and her colleagues at Stanford University have been the real leaders in this work, where they found that there's this basic, you know, choice that we have to adopt a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. A fixed mindset says, I'm good or bad at certain things. That's just the way it is. Always have been, always will be. Uh, a growth mindset says, with practiced effort, focused effort, I can get better at almost anything. And just that difference of having one mindset over the other, growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset, makes all the difference in the world in terms of outcomes. Because if you understand there's a difference and you believe that you want to have a growth mindset, they've done with kids like studies where after just 15 minutes about talking about the fixed versus growth mindset, the kids' behaviors are different, their growth is different, right? They get better and stronger at things, math, whatever. Um, so that's the one way. If you got to start someplace, start with a growth mindset. You got to have a growth mindset. Whenever you're struggling, frustrated, whatever, feel like you fail at something, you got to remind yourself, this doesn't define me. If I practice, I can get better at almost anything, right? And which is true. It's also true, right? Um, where does the fixed mindset come into play? A lot of us, you know, were told at a young age, I'm good at math, I'm bad at math, right? The kids, and Sandy brings it up, right? Struggled with calculus but got through it. There was one study I read at one point where it seemed to indicate that most of the gap between high achieving and low achieving students in math at high school was the cumulative effect, the compound interest, if you will, on effort over years. Because what happened between these kids was that these kids got a message in like third or fourth grade, you're good at math, right? They were really quick finishing their multiplication tables or something. And they were like, oh, it's cool. I'm good at math. This is fun. I'm going to try harder. And they were more successful. So they tried harder, more successful. It felt good. So they tried harder. These kids got the message in third or fourth grade, you're not good at math, right? Maybe they needed a little extra help with their multiplication tables or something. And that felt bad. So, like, I guess I'm not good at math. Or maybe their mom or dad said, oh, yeah, you know, we're just not good at math in this family or something like that. So, doing math felt bad. So, of course, they didn't try harder because it feels bad. So, they didn't grow as fast. And so that gap just kept growing, right? So, we need to make sure that we don't have a fixed mindset, right? Um, some people have it as they get older. There's the whole thing about like, oh, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Baloney. I do it all the time with myself and with clients, right? Shifting mindsets, shifting paradigms, helping them do new things they hadn't done before, you name it. Um, learning a musical instrument. I've been working on the guitar off and on for like 10 years. Is it much harder than if I had done it when I was 14? Yes, of course it is. Can I still do it? And if I practice consistently, can I get half decent and really enjoy it? Yeah, yeah, right? So we buy into these fixed mindsets and it gets in the way of a lot of joy and a lot of growth and a lot of satisfaction. One of the three keys to living a good life is learning and growing, right? In addition to our relationships and making a difference in the lives of others. The third is learning and growing. Why would we have a fixed mindset that gets in the way of us learning and growing? It's absurd. It's absurd. So that's one you got to shift, right? And just show that, like, look, it's reality. If I practice the guitar every day for the next 5 years Am I going to be like Derek Trucks or Jimi Hendrix or Terry Kath or one of the greats? No, probably not. But will I be much better and enjoy it, right, along the way? Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. 100%, no doubt, right? Um, so that's a big one, right? Um, just want to keep up in the chat. Charlotte says, good morning from sunny San Diego. Hello to you, Charlotte. Sandy says, buddy of mine was told he would never pass high school math. He ended up with a PhD in math. I have the same thing. I had kids come into this program that I taught it and eventually ran this like small high school, an innovative lab school. We had kids come in to the program, barely write a paragraph, right? And have been basically told their whole lives that they were kind of stupid. By the end of our program, they were really strong writers. And in some cases, they went on to be teachers or professors or, get a master's or a PhD in writing and literature. Like, unbelievable. Happened all the time, right? Um, Again, I mean, these adults, like parents and teachers, who aren't bad people, but they do these harmful things, right? Telling us that we're not able to grow and get better at something. Like it's absurd, right? Um, Anyways, okay, so growth and fixed mindset's one. For a lot of us, worthiness is one. I'm not worthy. And it it sometimes is explicit in our heads in the story that we tell ourselves, but oftentimes it takes on the guise of something else, right? That we end up engaging in self-sabotage, right? Like, why bother? Oh, that's never going to work out. Like, oh, even if I was successful, I'm not going to be able to stay successful, or oh, I'm probably going to fail at that in the end, right? We self-sabotage ourselves because there's an underlying feeling that we're not worthy of the success, worthy of the love, worthy of the admiration, the respect, right? Um, Worthiness can also manifest itself as people pleasing, right? There are people who are like the nicest person you ever known, and they're a people pleaser all the time. They're exhausting themselves by trying to please everybody, make everybody happy, make sure everybody likes them because they don't feel worthy of love, right? And they're afraid of being judged and rejected, right? So they become people pleasers. Um, that's a mindset, right? Of worthiness. Um, there, is the, you know, belief that like, I always um, cave. I always give in the end, or um, I always struggle to express how I feel or what I want or need. Um, And again, we tell ourselves these things, and so they become self-fulfilling prophecies, and that's the way it plays out. And our brains are listening to us. Our brains believe what we tell them, right? Our brains really don't know the difference between reality and visualization, the stories that we tell it, right? It's listening. So tell a different story, right? Don't say, I always cave. Well, then you're probably going to cave, right? Don't say I I'm really terrible at expressing my wants and needs. And your brain's going to say, okay, that's who we are, right? It kind of develops a fixed mindset. Whereas if you say, I've struggled in the past, I'm not good at that yet, but this time I'm going to be better at it. And then visualize it. Like actually imagine that situation and it playing out the way you would like it to, and how good that's going to feel. And your brain goes, oh, that was cool. We did that. We actually did it. And it felt good. So we're going to do that again. And your brain looks for more opportunities to do it again. So when you actually do the thing, you're more likely to do it the way you want it to. So visualization is a powerful tool. And, we have 60,000 thoughts or so a day, they think. Most of them negative, most of them repetitive. It's a lot of these negative, right? Self talk, mindset stuff. If we can limit the negative ones, that's supposedly the biggest impact on us, is if we can limit the negative ones. So if you can at least catch yourself when you're telling yourself the limiting belief, the negative mindset that gets in the way of you being the person that you want to be, of accomplishing what you want to accomplish. That in and of itself, you can stop it dead in its tracks. That's the best thing, right? Most impactful. But if you can, on top of that, shift to a more positive mindset, right? And practice that through journaling, meditation, intention setting, right? More positive self-talk. That will compound the positive impact of limiting the negative self-talk, right? Charlotte says, I love being a lifelong learner. Ever since I was a child, I've been curious about this world. An open-minded heart is important. Amen. I'm a middle school teacher and love what I do. That's great. So many aha moments. Yeah. There's something exciting about seeing these future citizens of the world learning, hopefully good things. I've learned so much from my students and my 15-year-old son. It's been very healing as my childhood and adolescence was dark. I'm sorry about your childhood and adolescence, but sounds like you've turned things into such a beautiful experience as an adult working with these kids. They're lucky to have you and your own 15-year-old son. That's beautiful. Yeah, my experience with teaching was the same, and with life coaching now is the same. And it's really wonderful. And watching somebody shift a mindset, have an epiphany. It happened today with a client. It's awesome. Um, to really, you know, be a part of someone's journey as they discover new talents or new abilities that they have and develop them, and to overcome some of these fixed mindsets. It's really extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. Um, uh, and again, this is the kind of thing that, even if you're not a teacher or a life coach, to be aware of your own mindsets and how we tell ourselves and other people these stories about us, and how we can stop doing that and maybe model the opposite, and maybe inspire other people to do the same, to catch themselves when they have a limiting belief or uh, a limiting mindset towards themselves, and shift the narrative, right? Um, Sometimes, it's possible to do it, through kind of a daily practice, in the morning, intention setting, right? To be aware of it, to raise the awareness of, like, okay, right now I'm working on shifting this mindset, right? That, like, oh, I'm a procrastinator and I'm lazy. I hear that all the time. I taught for 25 years. I met two lazy kids. And even then, I'm not sure how lazy they really were. Everybody else, there's a reason why they didn't do what they needed to do when they needed to do it. And so when we label ourselves or other people, we get in the way of our curiosity that could allow us to figure out what's actually going on, to actually understand ourselves, right? And what's blocking us, or this other person and what's blocking them. And then to be able to do something about it, right? To overcome it. Instead, we create this mindset where it's a character flaw, right? You're lazy, I'm self-centered, I'm selfish, right? And sometimes, again, it was adults who told us this, maybe once even, right? For me, I was like 4 or 5 years old, maybe six, sitting on my mother's lap. I remember she called me selfish. I don't remember why. It's probably that I wanted a toy or something like that we couldn't afford or something. And and she said I was a selfish little boy. It was the only time, I think, in my entire childhood where she called me selfish. I don't think she ever called me selfish again, but it was like, and it stuck. And it led me a lot of my life to be a people pleaser, to have to prove myself, to be of service to other people, to sacrifice, martyr myself. Um, I just trying to prove that I'm not selfish, right? Um, like, watch out for these labels that we put on ourselves and other people. They are not helpful a lot of the time. right? Um, so let's even take a moment, and if you want to close your eyes again and or softly gaze across the room, what is a mindset that is a real limiting belief for you, right? That gets in the way of you learning, you growing, stretching, taking appropriate risks, being in your discomfort zone, right? Um, Living the life you want to live, doing the things you want to do, having the relationships you want to have. What do you think are the mindsets, the limiting beliefs that are holding you back? And if you feel comfortable, pop it in the chat. Let us know what came up for you. Um, for me, um, uh, there have been worthiness mindsets or lack of worthiness mindsets that have gotten in the way. And uh, I had bouts of imposter syndrome, right? Kept me from starting a life coaching business for years, like on a more serious level. And then once I did, it took off like immediately because I had realized I had a limiting belief on it. I need to overcome that. Right? I was feeling like imposter syndrome. I was like, this, I'm like awesome at this. Like, why am I not embracing this? Right? Um, right? Like Yvonne says, not worthy, not or good enough. Right? Brooke, failure. Right? Um, so I had to work on that. I had to work on my worthiness and work on the things that created that mindset, and then also work on shifting that mindset, right, to one of worthiness and abundance and gratitude, right? Gratitude is a powerful one that can help you overcome some of your limiting mindsets and beliefs, right? It shifts everything out of your fear center into your prefrontal cortex, right? Just changes the whole way your brain is functioning in that moment. So that's a great one to use, right? Um, for some of us, it's certain situations trigger a limiting belief or mindset. It might be certain contexts where you don't, where maybe you have a really empowering mindset, but put you in a different set of circumstances, and all of a sudden, like that goes away, right? You can see it with people in their work persona, almost like in the TV show Severance, their work persona versus their home life persona. It can be very different because in a different context, they have a different mindset, right? A different way of seeing themselves. Um, and that's something to be aware of. If you're going through a tough time, either at work or at home, it's easy to dive into the other a lot more because it may be the place that you feel more confidence, more worthiness, right? That you feel like you can show that you're not lazy or weak or whatever, but you might be avoiding shifting the mindset in the other part of your life. And so you got to realize that and take the deep breath and say, okay, I'm not going to just like avoid the growth that I need to do here and confronting this mindset and just spend my time in this other domain, right? Ignoring my work or ignoring my home life, right? I've got to integrate them, right? That's a lot of the work I do with people is about like how do you align the different parts of your life so that they're an integral whole, that you have integrity, right? In every aspect of your life because they're all in alignment with your core values and beliefs and who you are and how you see yourself and that they're all healthy mindsets, right? That's what you want. But we will often avoid the setting or the context or the domain of our lives where we're struggling with a limiting belief or mindset, right? That happens a lot. Um, so I always thought that was really interesting, right? And so it makes me very aware of that in my own life and when I'm working with people on this stuff. Um, but where else? I mean, if other people are willing to share or is there a mindset that you're finding particularly challenging to shift, and you're not sure how to do it? We could talk about that. Um, for me, a lot of it is, little baby steps, like breaking things down into like little teeny steps that you can start to take that over time add up, right? So, for instance, say you have a mindset that, I'm lazy and I'm a procrastinator, and, or, I'm terrible at you know, addressing my inbox, my email out of control, or, um, longer projects I'm terrible at, right? Those are mindsets. If instead you said, no, I just need to approach them differently. Um, so if you're struggling with a longer project, if you're struggling with procrastination, feeling lazy, set a timer. What's the least amount of time that you could imagine tolerating doing the thing that you're avoiding, right? 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You can do anything for 10 minutes, really, right? Set the timer for 10 minutes, sit down, do the thing. If after 10 minutes then the timer goes off, you're like, that wasn't so bad. I could do another 10 minutes. Set it again, do another 10 minutes. You might go, I could do 20 more minutes. Great, set the timer for 20 minutes now, right? Um, Building your tolerance little by little and showing yourself that it's not about laziness or procrastination or whatever. It's about like making it feel manageable so that your nervous system doesn't shut down, right? Because what's happening a lot of the time when we put off things, when we procrastinate, when we avoid, is that our nervous system is disrupted because there's some kind of fear underlying this: fear of failure, fear of success, judgment, whatever. And it feels daunting. The whole thing feels daunting as a result. But if you say, like, no, I don't have to finish this now. I'm just going to do 10 minutes. 10 minutes. That's it, right? 10 minutes. Set the timer. If it's a miserable experience after 10 minutes, I can take a break and come back to it later, right? Hopefully set a timer to come back, right? An alarm. But almost always, once you get it started, you realize, it's not so bad. I can do this. And if you break it up into these small chunks, eventually you're going to finish it, right? Um, so so there are these little tools that you can use. And then once you overcome that, then it's easier. Like your brain then has the evidence that says, oh, yeah, I'm actually not bad at that. Or I can do things like that. I can do the longer project. I can do that kind of work. I did it. I had to break it up into chunks, but that's okay. That's how I did it. Great. Mission accomplished. Felt wonderful. Felt a relief. Your brain goes, "Ooh, we can do that." And that's how we do it. And it feels good. So let's look for more opportunities to feel good like that, right? Um, Yvonne says, not worthy or good enough, right? Not strong, Victoria says. Um, right? Yeah, those are other ones. So then I'm not strong, right? Boy, where did that get wired, right? That a lot of us have. And what is strength? The you know, and now we're getting a little bit into paradigms. Like, what are these things that are bigger than just us? What is strength? I've had recently conversations with a couple of different people about this. Like, what is strength? I was brought up by my dad to suck it up, pull myself up by my bootstraps, manage my emotions and my struggles myself internally, rather than ask for help, certainly not go to therapy, right? Um, don't let people see that you're grieving or you're sad or whatever. Like, oh my God, it's toxic stuff. And so those are mindsets and paradigms that I internalized for a while and caused me a lot of pain and suffering as a result. And, instead, if we could see, as Brene Brown has been so groundbreaking on, vulnerability as strength, vulnerability is courage, right? There's no courage. She had this great conversation about this work she did with vets and soldiers, and and they were saying there's no courage without vulnerability, right? There's no courage without fear, right? So therefore, being vulnerable is courageous, is strength. That's a paradigm shift, right? And if you see yourself as not strong, right, but you want to be strong, you got to make sure you get the right paradigm about what strength actually means. Because a lot of times it's that we're actually strong, but we've got the definition backwards, right? We're being vulnerable and asking for help at strength, right? Real independence is knowing when you need help, where to get it, go get it, and put it to good use. So I think that's a big one. It's an interesting one, right? So thanks for sharing that, Victoria. Brooke says we must have had the same dad. Yeah, there's a lot of them out there, right? Um, and it's that, but you can change, this generational inheritance of these harmful paradigms and mindsets. You can stop it, right? And shift them for yourself and for your kids and grandkids, right? Nieces and nephews, whatever it is. Like help them see things and see the world and see themselves through a different lens. And it can be life changing, can be truly life changing, right? I think particularly when we're going through a big transition, or we're grieving, which is a form of transition, right? Um, it's a particularly important time to take stock of our paradigms and mindsets and which ones are serving us and which ones aren't, and to shift the ones that aren't, right? We cling to what's familiar, but what's familiar is often in this modern day and age not healthy. Um, and and so I think taking stock again, it's a lot of the work that I do with people early on is about looking at these mindsets and beliefs and paradigms and which ones need to shift, because they're often the biggest obstacles we're facing, right? To heal and grow and right. I mean, even take grief, right, which can take lots of different forms and you know uh, goes at its own pace. Like to to understand that we have paradigms about what grief is. We have a mindset about what we need to do to grieve, right? We need to examine those and make sure that they're healthy and kind and forgiving and compassionate and flexible, because that's what grief demands, right? Is all of that. Um, right? As Brooke says, change the ingredients, right? You don't like the soup, change the ingredients, right? Um, I think that's huge. That's huge, right? Um, so what's one paradigm or mindset, right? Particularly interested in mindsets today that you need to shift about yourself. And what would it look like if you shifted it? What would happen? What would change in your life if you shifted that mindset? Right? So what's one mindset that you need to shift or want to shift? And what would it look like if you did? And pop that in the chat, right? Karma says, often family dynamics will try to reinforce a quality about you that is not accurate, but you hear it for a lifetime and it sticks. Yeah, and a lot of that stuff is like hardwired, like from childhood, so that when we gather around family, right, or friends, this can be true with old friends, and everybody starts to fall back into the same patterns and the same behaviors and mindsets and expects the same of other people. I always hated that. Oh my God. It kept me from hanging around with like one group of friends, as a group as much as they wanted to, because I'm like, I don't like the dynamics when we're all together. I just don't. One on one, we're great. We don't fall into that pattern. But when we're together as a group, everybody's back in their old roles and expectations and mindsets. Oh my God, it was toxic. Hated it. Right. Um, Brooke says, I fear the past will repeat itself in my decision making. Yeah, right. And, but it doesn't have to, right? You can look at and take an honest look at your decision making process and how you weigh pros and cons and how you trust your gut or not. And that's great, right? But like, that's not a pattern that's going to necessarily repeat itself. Uh, but it may be some data to look at, right? But it's not something to be paralyzed by, right? Right? You end up doing nothing, right? Instead, say like, let me look at the way I make decisions, and if I can make some changes to that feel good, that's great, right? Um, uh, that's huge, right? That's a big one. Um, Let me skim this one from Charlotte. I hope I don't trigger anyone, so trigger warning, right? Um, uh, Dealt with imposter syndrome, still work on an EMDR, which is great. God gave me a gift I didn't even know I needed. When I was a child and I experienced loss of a pet or a loved one, when I cried, my father would say I was a sadist and a masochist. That caused these losses so that I could cry and get attention. Wow. Um, Wondered if I'm truly as compassionate or if I'm an imposter just trying to get attention. Wow, that's such a toxic one, right? I'm so sorry. Protect myself. My family had to separate myself from my father. Died on May 29th, and his memorial is tomorrow. Wow. Wow. Just so happened that the day he died, I went to his house, something I've done maybe 3 times over a decade, to take pizza to my mom because I knew she'd been having a hard time. My dad began to transition while I was there. Because of a string of events, I ended up alone for hours with my dad until he went into a coma. Wow. My face is the last one he saw, and I was full of compassion for him. It's beautiful. I sang to him. I tried to soothe him because he was afraid, and I just wanted him to not be alone. Charlotte, that's beautiful, right? I wasn't there as his daughter, but as a human helping another human. I realized then that I truly am compassionate, and it wasn't lost on me. That is, boy, if you ever needed evidence, right? Uh, that in his final moments, I got to be compassionate to the very person who called me a sadist and masochist in his last moments. I still can't believe that in delivering a pizza, God gave me closure that I wasn't aware I needed. Charlotte, that is a beautiful story. I'm sorry for your loss. That is a beautiful story. I'm so grateful you shared it. Yeah, like, your father, obviously I didn't know him, but like, I imagine there was something terribly broken inside of him where he felt afraid and less than for not being able to be more compassionate. And as a result, labeled you as being a sadist and a masochist for being compassionate and for being able to tap into that emotional intelligence that you had at a young age. And that's tragic. That happens so often, right? That people feeling their own inadequacy to make themselves feel not even better necessarily, less bad, maybe a better way to put it, judge and label other people who have the capacity that they wish they'd had. But for you in that moment to have the opportunity to demonstrate for yourself as well as to him that you are a deeply compassionate person, it was a real gift. It's beautiful. And it's a good reminder to us, right, to not believe the stories about us that other people tell and that we end up telling ourselves, but rather to try to get in touch with that authentic part of ourselves, right? What our core values are and beliefs, and to be able to honestly look at our day to day actions and evaluate the extent to which we're living aligned with our values, that we have integrity, and to be forgiving and understanding that we're going to make mistakes and some good days are better than others, but that we try to make better mistakes tomorrow, as my friend says, and that we try to be better versions of our authentic self every day. And that's what you have demonstrated, right? That's beautiful, right? So thank you for sharing that, right? Um, Anybody else want to share either something that they're working on or want to work on, um, want to take some baby steps to heal something so that you can shift a mindset, a limiting belief that is not serving you, right? Um, or a question that you have, anything that came up that you want some clarity about, or how it relates to something that you're experiencing, pop that in the chat. While we're doing that, just a reminder that these live sessions are free. They're supported with donations from people like you. I know some of you have made donations in the past, and deeply grateful for that. So thanks in advance for anybody who feels particularly moved today to do that. I hope you're following me. If not, please do. And you can, if you want to DM me about any questions you have on any of this stuff today or any other sessions that I've done, um, if you'd like to have a deeper conversation about what this work looks like, or your journey, send a message to me there. Um, and you can also find through that. I have a group here on Insight Timer, Living with Integrity and Joy. That's what I call everything, my podcast and company and all that. Um, and uh, and I hope you'll join that group. And I share my Substack there, and we share meditations and thoughts on how to calm your nervous systems and all that. So I hope you'll join that little community of love and integrity. Um, I have a little mini course that people have taken and seem to like, and you can also have a dialogue with me there uh, uh, about that or anything else. So I hope you'll check that out. And I have a lot of meditations up here with more to come in the coming weeks. Um, and so I hope you'll check that out. And one of them is on today's topic, mindsets, paradigms, and limiting beliefs. So when you need a little refresher or reminder or some intention setting, that'd be a good one to check out and keep favorited, right? Um, so I hope you check that out. And then I do these live sessions normally on Wednesdays at noon Eastern. Today, obviously different. We're on Friday because I was traveling in the middle of this week, and next week I'm not going to be available. I'll be traveling out in Washington State. Um, but I'll be back on June 29th, usual time, noon Eastern. So I hope you'll sign up for that. And I have other ones posted as well, so you can sign up for those in advance, and you should get a notification. So I hope you'll sign up for that. And again, the most important thing is make sure you're following me. Um, I'd love to be connected to you and continue the conversation. Um, just go back to the chat before we say goodbye. Brooke says that's a lot of strength, Charlotte. Absolutely. Wow, unbelievable, right? And such strong core values. Yvonne says, I know how to rewrite what I say and I have motivation, but I still get so stuck. I want to believe I'm worthy and love myself, but I just shut down. I just can't seem to keep doing the work consistently, no matter how much I want to. Uh, yeah, so Yvonne, that's common. I end up working with a lot of people because of that very situation. And, you know, it, there are a variety of ways to try and get unstuck, um, and tap into that motivation and these, rewriting of these stories. But putting it into practice sometimes, there's still things that are causing some resistance underneath. Um, but there are ways in the short term to start making some progress as well. So if you'd like to talk about that, I'd love to. So reach out to me. Um, Victoria's in Washington. That's great. Which part of Washington? I'm going to be in Seattle and Tacoma and Bellingham, as well as Whidbey Island for a night. Um, Love it out there. Such a beautiful part of the country and the world. Linda says, I feel stuck when trying to change my job / achieve anything. As I keep telling myself I'm too old, 64, at its core, I don't believe it. But keep telling myself that story all the same, right? And it's a little form of self-sabotage going on there, right? And um, because it feels safer to, you know, be deciding not to do it rather than trying and not being able to. Um, but people reinvent themselves all the time, and I just made a pivot. You know, um, when I turned 60, that prompted my pivot into doing this full time. Um, so I think we have to change a lot of paradigms and mindsets about age, moving forward, right? Um, so again, Linda, if you'd like to have a conversation about that, I'd love to be of help. Skagit County, I'll look that up. I'm not sure where the County is, Victoria. But it's a beautiful time of year out there, right? I'm really looking forward to being out there. So thank you all. I really appreciate it. Sending you all a lot of love and gratitude. Um, this is important work. It's hard work. I do sessions on this, and obviously I've done meditations and other things because it's such an important challenge for us. These stories get in the way, and for a lot of us, they're our main obstacles. And sometimes we've got layers of them, right? So you rewrite one thing and then discover there's something else getting in the way. But it's good work. And again, growth mindset, we can get better at all of it, including this stuff, with focused effort over time. And if I can be of help, let me know. But thank you all. Really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you all in about 10 days, right? Um, at the next session. But in the meantime, I hope you find a lot of love and joy and moments to savor, right, of beauty in your life, right? Um, Charlotte, you're welcome. Thank you. I'm really, really glad this cell phone. Thank you for sharing. Really deeply appreciative for you sharing your story. Um, and Simon, thank you. Really glad it resonated with you. Really appreciate that. Um, so thank you all. Really appreciate it. Sending much love and gratitude. Bye bye.